It's D-U-E-U tell. I see you by this point, you're reading my mind. It's time for football. We about to keep this thing moving. I'm about it, you're with it, let's do it. We gon' make this thing official, you heard me? If you're the best, then let's prove it. The goal is set to have a team become a unit, man. We about to keep this thing moving. I'm about it, you're with it, let's do it. We gon' make this thing official, you heard me? If you're the best, then let's prove it. The goal is set to have a team become a unit, yeah.
Welcome to Football Game Plan's NFL All 32 show. I am Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook, and today's episode will be all about the Cincinnati Bengals. Who Dey Fan Nation in effect today on this episode as we take a look at some training camp quick hits, some reasons for optimism, as well as some causes for concern, in addition to our positional breakdowns on both sides of the ball. But first, let's take a look at some of the key storylines heading into the season as we go into our 4-minute offense. Last year's number 1 overall pick was reunited with his former number 1 wide receiver from college, who was made the team's first selection in this year's draft. We're talking about quarterback Joe Burrow, who will find a familiar face out there on the perimeter this year, as he'll be joined by wide receiver Jamar Chase, who is considered by many to be the consensus number 1 wideout in the draft class. Now, adding someone like Chase to the mix to go along with the young guys that Burrow started to build camaraderie with last year should only make this passing game even more potent. One would expect, because of that chemistry, Chase should hit the ground running from day one. The major story of last season and the talk of this entire offseason was all about protecting Joe Burrow and fixing the offensive line. This was a unit that gave up 48 sacks last year, which was tied for 27th in the league, and couldn't create room in the running game as well. Now, in all fairness, not all of the sacks were all of the offensive line's fault, but the point still remains. The Bengals had to get better in that category. They went out and signed Riley Reef in free agency from the Minnesota Vikings and invested 3 draft picks up front in 2nd-round pick Jackson Carman out of Clemson, 4th-round pick Deontay Smith out of ECU, East Carolina, and 6th-round pick Trey Hill from Georgia. Some even argued that they should have gone with an offensive lineman over Chase with that 5th overall pick. So we will see if the acquisitions and additions will keep Burrow upright for a full 17-game season. The Bengals owned one of the worst run defenses in the league last year, giving up 148 yards a game, and their pass defense was very spotty as well. One major reason for that was due to the fact that they were legitimately banged up from start to finish. Now, they signed cornerback Trey Waynes in free agency last year, only for him to miss the entire season with a pectoral injury. And up front, along that aforementioned defensive line, DJ Reader only played a handful of games, and both Josh Tupou and Rennell Wren missed an entire season, as well as Mike Daniels. So when you add the full health of those guys, along with who they brought in via the draft and free agency, it will most definitely feel like an entirely new defense, when the truth of the matter is it will just be a healthier defense. Head coach Zach Taylor is entering his 3rd season as the Bengals coach, and while the overall record is abysmal, in my opinion, it isn't all what it seems. Last year, the Bengals played some competitive ball and wasn't getting blown out in a lot of those games. They lost a lot of close games, and a lot of times it wasn't because they were out-coached, more so outmanned out there on the field. So I'm willing to give Taylor a bit of a reprieve in that regard, as we saw him keep a young, injury-riddled team competitive throughout the course of the season, sans a few games here and there. However, this is a pivotal year for him, as with a healthier and much improved bunch on both sides of the ball, the front office will want to start to see those close losses turn into competitive wins. Joe Burrow was off to a terrific start to his career before going down with an injury. He completed 65% of his passes and boasted a healthy 13-5 touchdown to interception ratio. From a play standpoint, he displayed the toughness that you wanted to see from the position and didn't shy away from pressure. This season, he has to be a little bit more cognizant in terms of protecting himself when he scrambles and leaves the pocket, and learn to live to fight another day by throwing the football away and not taking those unnecessary shots. Now, he was just okay from a yards per attempt perspective, and the hope is that adding his former college teammate in Jamar Chase, along with an improved offensive line, will help rectify that issue. But based off the small sample size of 2020, in my opinion, the Bengals definitely got themselves a legitimate stud in Burrow. Another player the Bengals sorely missed last season was star tailback Joe Mixon, who only played in 6 games because of a foot injury, and the Bengals' run game suffered mightily because of it. Now, back at 100% expect him to get back to the 1,000-yard rusher we've seen over the previous 2 seasons. Mixon is a difference maker on both ends of offense, and he got good play last year from Samaje Perine. In Mixon's absence, his former college teammate averaged an impressive 4.8 yards a carry considering the situation, and while Gio Bernard is gone, he's moved on. I would expect the role to be filled by one of 2 rookies. Chris Evans, the Bengals' 6th-round pick out of Michigan, and undrafted rookie free agent Puka Williams out of Kansas, whose game is very similar to that of Gio Bernard, so we'll see how the situation will all play out this upcoming training camp. Cincinnati is loaded at wide receiver in my opinion. Gone is future Hall of Famer A.J. Green, but the team boasts an impressive group with Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, and T. Higgins. Now, Boyd and Higgins were on pace for 1,000-yard seasons apiece before Joe Burrow got hurt, and then the duo combined for 10 touchdown receptions. Chase is expected to flirt with that number as well, considering the built-in chemistry he already has with Burrow. Auden Tate will also factor into the mix as a bigger inside wide receiver that can win over the middle of the field. Now, the tight end position is where the staff wants to see continued growth this season. Drew Sample gained some ground last year, showing improvement over his rookie year. He finished with 40 catches and nearly 350 yards. He led the tight end group last year in those areas, taking over for the injured CJ Uzomah, who missed virtually all of last season. So his return helps strengthen the unit as a whole. And I would keep an eye out for undrafted rookie free agent Pro Wells out of TCU. He was situationally used in college, but showed up big time every time his number was called, especially inside the red zone. He has a chance to make some noise within this group. Health and productivity will go hand in hand with this 2021 offensive line. Cincinnati needs 2 things to happen. Number 1, Jonah Williams has to stay healthy on the left side. He's missed time during his first 2 years in the NFL. And 2, Riley Reiff needs to be solid to stellar up front. If they can be good on the bookends, I think they'll be fine as a whole. I like center Trey Hopkins, but he's returning from an ACL injury that he suffered in the last game of the season. So that uncertainty puts the focus on former first-round pick Billy Price or rookie Trey Hill out of Georgia to step up and be the guy. Now at guard, expect Jackson Carman out of Clemson, the rookie, to snag one of those starting spots alongside Quentin Spain, who gave them good, versatile play last season. And I'm interested to see how rookie Deontay Smith fits up. I believe he's a sneaky option at tackle, which would allow them to kick Reiff inside to guard. Smith was tremendous on tape and held his own down at the recent Senior Bowl. And second-year player Hakeem Adeniji was able to log some starts last year and should provide good swing depth up front, along with Michael Jordan and Xavier Su'a-Filo. I'm excited about the potential of this Bengals defensive line. We spoke earlier about how decimated this unit was because of injury, and getting back DJ Reader, Mike Daniels, Renell Wren, and Josh Poe immediately helps them get better versus the run. You know what also helps them get better? Signing free agent Larry Ogunjobi from the Cleveland Browns and drafting nose tackle Tyler Shelvin out of LSU in the 4th round. So the Bengals won't get pushed around in the run game this year if everyone can stay healthy. Now on the edges, they signed one of my favorite players in Trey Hendrickson from the New Orleans Saints. He was the 2nd best pass rusher on that Saints defense and now gets an opportunity to be the guy in Cincinnati. So he and Sam Hubbard should benefit from each other's presence out there on the field. The Bengals added another one of my favorites in the draft class with the selection of Cam Sample out of Tulane, who reminds me a lot of a cross between Melvin Ingram and Carl Lawson, which means they got a really good player. And 3rd-round pick Joseph Asai out of Texas should be in line to play in that Carl Lawson situational rusher role this year, as he has a motor to be a disruptive presence, and both Amani Bledsoe and Khalid Kareem will provide that quality rotational depth after taking advantage of the increased playing time that they got last season. I think the Bengals are very solid at linebacker. Both Logan Wilson and Akeem Davis-Gaither match up athletically and instinctually in today's game, in my opinion. Wilson played well in 12 games before missing the rest of the season with an injury, and Davis-Gaither had a super performance in the last game of the season, just giving you guys a glimpse of what's to come in 2021. Now, Jermaine Pratt has been steady for them, but they would like to see him take a major step forward this upcoming season, and one should expect the productivity of this group to increase significantly with a healthy, revamped defensive line playing in front of them. Cincinnati is strong at safety, led by Jesse Bates III, who led the team in solo tackles, pass breakups, as well as interceptions. He's the quarterback of this defense and does a solid job of minimizing and also erasing mistakes. Now, riding sidecar with him is Von Bell, who proved to be a really good free agent acquisition last season from New Orleans. Bell forced 3 fumbles, which led the team in that area and was a leader in total tackles as well. Now, depth is strong here with Brandon Wilson and free agent signee Ricardo Allen, who gives him some positional flexibility, able to play corner as well as both safety spots. Now, at corner is where the Bengals fans should see vast improvement as they get back a healthy Trey Waynes, along with free agent signee Chidobe Awuzie, who comes over from the Dallas Cowboys, where he had injury and COVID-related issues last season. And the team also signed the talented Mike Hilton, who starred with the Pittsburgh Steelers and should be the starter inside at slot corner. So that's technically 3 new starters, all talented for the Bengals out there on the perimeter. And Darius Phillips, who is a core special teamer and veteran, will provide quality depth with Eli Apple, the free agent signee. I would also keep an eye out for undrafted rookie free agent Antonio Phillips out of Ball State. He could surprise in camp and charge his way up that depth chart as well. One of the major reasons for optimism for the Bengals, we've been talking about it all shows, that key players are returning from injury. Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, Trey Waynes is back in the secondary, along with the entire defensive line group seems like. So there's a lot to be optimistic about if you're Cincinnati. And they played a lot of close games in 2020, and a lot of times those close losses turn into competitive victories the next season. And when you add the fact that they got better in every aspect of their offense and defense, you can expect this team to start turning some of those losses into wins. So yes, there's a lot to be optimistic about in the Queen City. A cause for concern would be if the offensive line still has their struggles. You talk about someone like Trey Hopkins, who I really like and is a really good player, but he got injured in the last game of the season, so you don't know if he's going to be back healthy at 100%. And if that throws off everything up front, if you have those nagging injuries and things of that nature, the offensive line could struggle, which could derail potentially a top-tier offense. And if the defensive line can't get pressure, you talk about a team that was 32nd in sacks. They only had 17 sacks last year. They have to find ways to disrupt the pocket. If they can't do that, and if they're struggling on both sides of the line of scrimmage, they won't win a lot of games. Taking a look at some training camp quick hits and a camp surprise offensively, Puka Williams. This guy is dynamic. He will remind a lot of people of what they had in Gio Bernard. You talk about someone that can be dangerous out of the backfield as a slot guy in a passing game. You want Puka Williams with the football. At worst, he can help them out in a return game. And keep an eye out for Darius Hodge. This guy played defensive end for Marshall. He's probably more of a sandbacker. He's cut from the same cloth as someone like Carl Lawson. I know I said that name all throughout the video, but Hodge was tremendous for the Marshall Thundering Herd and could shock some people with how well he's able to consistently find a football and also find the quarterback. Rookie impact player offensively, it's an easy one. It's Jamar Chase. He's wearing number 1. They took him in the first round with their first round pick, and this guy is going to get a lot of targets coming his way because of the continuity he already has with Joe Burrow. That's an easy pick for me. On defense, I like Cam Sample. I think this guy will surprise some and play a lot this year for Cincinnati in a variety of roles. You talk about someone that can hold his own as a stand-up edge guy, as a hand in the dirt defensive end, can also kick down inside and rush over guards. He's going to have a big-time impact this year for the Bengals. Looking at the X factors for Cincinnati on the offensive side, it's another easy one. It's the offensive line. If this unit can play better than they did in 2020, this team can make a lot of noise in that division because they have the perimeter options to cause problems, but none of that will happen if the offensive line can't block. And defensively, Trey Hendrickson, they went out and signed him in free agency to be their sack guy. He was a double-digit sack guy last year in New Orleans playing spot duty. So imagine what you can do with him playing a full-time role. Well, the Bengals hope that it leads to more double-digit sack numbers this upcoming season. Breakout players, to me, quarterback Joe Burrow will have the breakout season, the second-year jump that we normally see from these quarterbacks after starting some games as a rookie. And I think, health permitting, he will put up some monster numbers considering what he has on the outside. And I think the secondary will have a breakout season. We already know about Jesse Bates, and we saw Von Bell play well last year for the Bengals in his first season, but I'm excited about the cornerback group. They got 3 technically new starters out there. They're very good players. I think combined with that safety group, this secondary will truly break out in 2021. The road to the Super Bowl for the Bengals goes as follows. First and foremost, they got to close out games better. When they have a team beat, you got to close the door and put a team away. If they can close out games and win those close games, this is going to be a tremendously different year for Cincinnati. And the defense has to get to top 15 in sacks. You don't have to be the top. You don't have to be top 5, but you can't be 32nd once again. And the offensive line has to become an asset and not a liability. If that happens, the Bengals can surprise a lot of folks in the NFL, get into the playoffs, and find themselves playing bonus football deep into the playoffs. I have the Bengals finishing 4th in the AFC North. I think this team will take another significant step forward. I think we'll see the defensive line stay healthy. We'll see Joe Burrow be out there for a full 17-game season. We'll see the best of the passing game and run game with Joe Mixon back out there. So overall, this will be a very dangerous team. And I look at them how I look at the Jets. They could be flirting with that 3rd spot in the AFC North or even that last spot in the playoffs. But I do think we'll see the Bengals set the table for 2022 with how they play this upcoming season. So that's it for this edition of Football Game Plan's NFL All 32 show. I am Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Be sure to follow me on all of my social media accounts, and don't forget to check out and subscribe to the Football Game Plan Network located at youtube.com/footballgameplan. Also subscribe on iTunes to Football Game Plan Podcast and leave us a 5-star rating.
It's D-U-E-U till I see you. By this point you're reading my mind. It's time for football. We about to keep this thing moving. I'm about it, you're with it, let's do it. We gon' make this thing official, you heard me? If you're the best, then let's prove it. The goal is set to have a team become a unit, man. We about to keep this thing moving. I'm about it, you're with it, let's do it. We gon' make this thing official, you heard me? If you're the best, then let's prove it. The goal is set to have a team become a unit, yeah.